Another way in which you can augment your scope is to add flags. And you have two flags that are available for you to use inside of SASS: global and default. The default flag allows us to set the value of a variable in case it hasn't already been set or its current value is null. So this allows it to be treated as if it's unassigned. The global flag is going to help us change the scope of a local variable. The global flag can be useful, but it's not always a good practice to change the variable's scope in this way. Generally, when you're going to use flags, you'll use them in conjunction with mixins, which we haven't covered yet, but I'm going to show you how the flag would affect the page that we're currently working on so that you can understand what happens when we add a global or default flag. In my to box right here, I'm going to go ahead and right after the primary color that's being used, I'm going to add an exclamation and I'm going to type the word global. And if we save and we refresh, you're going to see that the 3 box has now been affected by this rule. It is now inheriting whatever other values. And look at my footer. My footer, the color for my footer is also now turning into being yellow. So what's happening here is when we add the global flag, it's going to now essentially change the global value of primary color. Now, all of these other instances of primary color that we're using elsewhere, the border bottom on our H1, the color of our A tags, we're also using it up here in the background of our header, those are remaining blue. So you can see that those things all remain blue. The reason why is because this global flag doesn't get initiated until line 69 of my code, where I specified global. Any other declarations that follow this global flag are now going to go ahead and be this new global color. So we're essentially at this point in our CSS, we're overwriting the value of primary color. When we didn't have global on here, this had local scope, which means that it's only going to affect the things that are within or encapsulated inside of this area of our CSS. When I add the global flag, however, it's going to go ahead and overwrite that. There's also a default flag that's available. So again, we write that by putting exclamation in default. And if I save and refresh, you can see that now, even though we specified that the variable color, primary color, was to be yellow, it ignored it and it rendered out as blue. So now what's happening is even though we specified it to be yellow here, we're saying use the default. So it is possible to overwrite these things by simply using the global or the default flags. So if I get rid of both of the flags and I save and refresh my page, you're going to see that now my first box is orange because we defined a local variable. My second box is going to be yellow because, again, we redefined primary color as a local variable. And then box 3 is just going to grab the default color that is being used on our variable of primary color. So no change is going to occur there. So this is a useful technique. Sometimes you might need to override a variable for some specific reason, and you might want child elements to inherit the new redefined value of that variable, but you might want to protect other things that are happening elsewhere within your project. And you can do that by adding a local variable, and then obviously you have special control in which you can use the global or default flags as well.